Hi again, everyone. I decided I wanted to give a call to a very good friend of mine named Haley. She is a registered travel nurse, and both her and her sister have decided to leave their homes and travel up to Newark, New Jersey, to the front lines, dealing with patients who are currently infected by COVID. So let's give them a call and see what they're going through. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. Could you introduce yourselves for me?
My name is Tasha Moyers, and I'm from Tallahassee, Alabama.
I'm Haley Deal, and I am also from Alabama originally, but I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia. We're Newark, New Jersey, kind of where at the root of the crisis. Not really root, but kind of in a hot spot.
Or in a hot spot. This is my first travel assignment, so this is my first time ever traveling. I was a local nurse in my hometown, and then decided to come this way. It was really stressful coming home every night and having to decontaminate myself. And several of my other friends had already made the decision to quarantine themselves from their family. And this kind of just popped up. Haley and I discussed it. Kind of happened really fast. I, my husband and I talked about it. We prayed. I applied, and the next day I was offered a job, and all the doors opened. So we felt like it was the right thing to do.
And I did travel nursing for several years, but I kind of hung up my travel pants and kind of settled in Atlanta. But with everything going on, and her taking the job already, I didn't really want her to go alone, and it seemed like the right thing to do.
It made it a lot better that Haley, because I kind of got cold feet a little bit because when I actually started thinking about it, okay, I was just going to take a backpack and a suitcase and just get on a plane, and I was going to stay at a hotel. And I had decided to Uber back and forth or to see if they had a shuttle. But then you start thinking about, okay, we got to take cleaning supplies. What am I going to eat? Are they going to have a stove? So when Haley
Will the
said,
grocery stores have food?
right. So I was so relieved when Haley said that she was able to, and she was able to get out of her contract, and they found her a job. So it made it a lot easier because I was making cleaner. My hand sanitizer and cleaning stuff to take with us because the stores were totally empty. You couldn't even buy a bottle of Lysol. So, and we were unsure about the food situation. So we packed rice, but just the basic essentials. So we've actually only had to go to the grocery store once since we've been up here.
Well, that's great. And I don't even know if I've even said in this yet. How do the two of you know each other?
This is my sister.
She's older than me, but she followed in my footsteps and became a nurse after a few years after I did.
Now, what is the incentive of becoming or doing travel nursing over just being a nurse, which is still a hero position in your hometown?
So the way it works for travel nursing, a lot of people don't really understand what that means. And we use the word assignment a lot, and it's not really clear how it all works. So the way it works is there's a lot of hospitals that will have needs and kind of be short staffed and have needs that need to be filled temporarily till they get some more permanent staff in. So we are those people that fill in those spots, and usually with them, having high needs, usually the pay is a little bit better for these short term contracts. Um, because also people are having to travel, across the country and, be away from their family to fill those needs temporarily till that hospital is able to staff more permanent staff. But it's kind of nice for me. I really enjoyed it for a long time because I got to explore different parts of the country, like LA, that I'd never been to before, where I met you. And so I've loved it, but just kind of after a while, I think I've gotten to the point where I just was kind of ready to settle down in one area and be a little closer to family. Atlanta's not too far from Alabama.
What are your specialties and how are you using those during the COVID outbreak?
Some of the biggest needs that they've had has been in the emergency room and in the ICU, and we just both happen to be emergency room and ICU nurse.
How many days have you worked so far up in Newark? Like, what has been your experience so far?
I work 7P to 7A, and I'm scheduled 4 shifts a week.
Which, by the way, a standard nursing schedule is 3 12-hour shifts per week, which is 36 hours. So our contracts are for 4 12s, which is 48 hours.
It's a heavy workload, especially the first couple of weeks we've here. This is week 3. The first week was really heavy, and you walk into the middle. You get 2 days orientation, and the third day you're out of the nest. So you're walking into a brand new facility. You don't know where a urine cup is. You kind of sort of get a tour, but they were so busy and they were so overcrowded with patients, and so had such immediate needs. It was kind of hard to get proper orientation, if that makes sense.
Hit the floor.
You just hit the floor and you just do what you can 1 minute to the next. But it's gotten a little bit better. I'm not saying that we're not as full. The hospital's still full, but the ER we're not triple the beds. It seemed like we had patients in the hallways in beds. We had the rooms were all full. We even had patients in recliners, chairs, wherever you could get them. There were multiple oxygen tanks up and down the halls, and that was you've got to make sure their tanks don't run out, because if they're on a non-rebreather, they're using a lot of oxygen, and they go through those tanks very quickly.
Things were really bad the week Tasha started, and then the week I started was also very bad. But it's been a weird change of energy even since I've been there, because I feel like everyone was so overwhelmed and there were so many patients coming in. Um, we've had 2 other units of the hospital that aren't normally ICUs become ICUs, just from overflow. I think one was a PACU, and since there aren't surgeries right now, or at least elective surgeries, that's been totally turned into an ICU. And then we have another area that was an extension of the ER somehow.
Intake.
Yeah, but somehow they also turned that into an ICU too. And it's kind of crazy floating to that unit, where it's not set up to be an ICU, and in the ICU you have to be able to hear the ventilator alarms go off, or the heart rate alarms go off and different things like that. So they had to have, and of course all the doors have to be closed, since we can't go in the patient's room as often as you normally would to take care of a patient. So they had baby monitors set up in the room so we could hear them outside of the room. It's been really wild. And another thing that's been interesting, normally in the ICU rooms, you have your pump next to the patient with all of your medications running on the IV pump, but we have long extensions for the tubing, and we have all the pumps set up outside of the room. So to limit exposure.
Because these patients that are positive are on contact isolation.
Well, and droplet. So you're trying to go in the room as little as possible.
Everyone's been hearing on the news that medical professionals are having a tough time with even getting the proper protective equipment and things of that nature. Have you experienced that?
I wasn't really sure how things were going to be when we got here, so we both brought a few of our own masks and a few of our own things, to just be prepared for whatever we were going to face. But it might be different department to department, but I would say that the situation is fair to good. They aren't able to provide us an N95 mask each day, which is usually a kind of a bare minimum requirement. But they actually have us. They'll dispense an N95 mask to us, and at the end of the day, they want us to write our name on it with a Sharpie, and then take it to somewhere to be sterilized and give it to us the next day. But it seems like the logistics aren't worked out, and then half the time you don't get your mask back, and so I have my backups, and it feels like just about every other day they're able to provide me a mask.
I've been provided masks every day that I've asked for. But the sad thing is, we have people. You used to have wipes in every room, gloves in every room. There are a lot of people who are stealing those, so they're not readily accessible. And I mean, I think this hospital has really done well, but they're not readily available. You have to get the gowns, and you have to get the masks, and you have to get, if there are wipes, you have to get them from the charge nurse's desk, because they're not just available throughout the hospital because people put them in their pocket. We took a tour around the neighborhood, and we saw this guy standing out there on the street, and he's got this bottle of wipes, and he's doing this, and they're doing cash. They're selling wipes from the hospital on the side of the road. Where are we?
Yeah, we've had to kind of get creative. So I mean, there's we have the hand sanitizer dispenser, so I'll get paper towels and then wipe down all my stuff because we don't. I haven't seen. I've seen one bucket of wipes since I've been there.
And I bring my own stuff to work to spray my stuff off. You know, my area, my computer, the phone.
It's quite the process, even just getting to work, and 'cause we on my unit we have these bunny suits that we wipe down with bleach every day, and then you have your face shield and respirator and your N95 with the surgical mask over it and hairnet and booties on your feet. And so that takes like 15, 20 minutes to get yourself situated even before that. And then at the end of the day, taking everything off, it's kind of interesting how it adds at least, 30, 45 minutes onto your day. Get it all off before lunch. And
ICU nurse, ER nurse. I just wear two masks, cover my hair, and I wash my hands.
What would you say to people when it comes to things like cleaning supplies? How much do you think that a person should have with them so that that way they're not overbuying and taking away from people that need it?
It depends on the person. It depends on the family size. It depends on their lifestyle. Obviously, I think a lot of people are on quarantine, so they're not going to be using it as much, but somebody could have a sick loved one at home. Their cleaning habits could be a lot different. I just say just use moderation. Soap and water goes a long way. Just use moderation. I don't think that we need to be excessive about anything at this point.
And I think also people that are limiting their social contact are going to need less supplies in that way. So, of course, have your cleaning supplies for when you go out, and if you're touching the gas handle called the pump. If you're touching that, I mean, you need to definitely sanitize your hands after, or use a old grocery bag to grab the pump. But I think that if people are doing a good job of not going out and about and touching a lot of things in public in their own home, they should consider that the safe zone and not be as, I mean, yes, be cautious, but it's not like going out into the world and being as cautious there. I think you should treat the outside world as dirty and your home kind of as a safe place, because if you haven't brought the germs in, they're not going to be there.
With the verbiage being used now of airborne, and people not really understanding the distance proximity of transferability, what would you say to help people understand, is this in your head? I mean, I know we're still learning about this, but is this in your head something that's just floating around and you can walk through it at any point in time? Or is this something that, is a little more, if someone coughs on you, that's when you have the ability to contract the virus?
So there's different types of precautions. There's contact, there's droplet, and there's airborne. Droplet is usually what the flu is, where what you're saying, where someone sneezes or coughs. It can be in the air, and it's not quite as scary as the airborne. But I think what they figured out with COVID, to my understanding, is that the little molecules are a little bit lighter than they would necessarily be in the flu, so they're hanging out in the air a little bit longer than flu type molecules. But it's not as, there are some other diseases such as TB or tuberculosis that floats in the air a lot longer. So I think it's kind of in between, in my opinion, to be droplet and airborne. But as far as how to think of that out in the public, I think if you're keeping at least, I mean, they say 6 feet, but I think that even if we're trying to stay 6 feet apart, if we're actually getting together with somebody, I think it's probably, we might cross that zone maybe 1 or 2 times on accident. So I think probably thinking 8 feet is probably going to be a safer way to actually maintain that 6 feet boundary.
Tasha, since you work in the ER, there's a lot of people who, especially at the beginning, and I think still now, are trying to figure out when they should go to the ER. The ERs were completely over flooded with people who possibly weren't even infected and then became infected due to going to an emergency room. So what are your thoughts on when a person should go and to see a nurse at an ER?
When you really can't breathe, come.
I think maybe the biggest piece of advice we can give there is to probably call your primary doctor or, a family doctor office and their opinion. Say, this is what I have going on. What do you think I should do? And likely, if you're saying you're short of breath or something more severe like that, they're likely going to tell you need to go to the ER. But if you're having mild symptoms, they think you can be treated not in an emergency room. They'll direct you to go to an office or whatever it might be.
Because you can't,
Case by case.
and like if somebody calls, I can't give them advice over the phone. Legally, you really can't. But the common sense, and if they don't have a primary care provider, they can call the hotline. Each state has their own Department of Health, and they have a hotline.
There should be a true physical symptom that is affecting your respiratory system before you even consider going.
Right.
But you should always, in any case and form, if you feel like you could have, some symptoms, then talk to your doctor. And that might be waiting on hold for 6 hours, but it's better than going into an ER.
You may slow it down for the person that truly is dying, or that needs immediate life-saving intervention. Or also, you're exposing yourself if you don't have it. Just walking in the door, you're exposing yourself.
So if you're just going to see if you have it, you might not have had it when you walked in, but
there's not a rapid test. I mean, there is a rapid test, but they use this for very limited cases. So usually, if you are swabbed for COVID, it's the next day when the result comes anyway. So you're not going to get an immediate answer most of the time.
And I feel like there's probably a lot of people that are going to ER to just find out if they do have it. But I'm not sure how things are in other states, but I've noticed around here, was actually a little disappointed. One of the parks I was going to take my dog walking in, it was closed down, and they had a COVID testing center there. So I'm sure the different websites or Department of Health hotlines will probably have that information for states too.
What is the testing situation like within your hospital?
Whether it's COVID or non-COVID related, everybody gets swabbed just to know where we are. So if they are positive, they try to put the positive patients together. If they're there for something else, appendicitis or whatever, what have you, and they're negative, then they try to separate them. But everybody that comes in that's admitted to our hospital gets tested.
What are some good things that you've noticed through this, or things that you're like, oh, it's really cool that this is happening at the hospital?
I know it's going to be great to be with my sister, and because she has a family with 4 kids and a husband, and she lives in Alabama. So while we see each other, every month, every couple of months, something like that, I knew I was going to love seeing her. Oh, she's getting teary-eyed. She's getting teary-eyed. I knew I was going to love getting this time with her and maybe kind of renewing our friendship, part of our sisterhood. But also, while I knew it was going to be rewarding to help these very sick patients, I was thinking it was going to be especially rewarding considering that these people weren't going to have their families be able to visit them, because we're not allowing any visitors to the hospitals just to decrease transmission of the disease. I was expecting that, and that's been wonderful. But one thing I didn't expect also was the camaraderie experience with the nursing staff, where a lot of places aren't as friendly to travelers. I feel like they're so helpful and just so, having open arms and very relieved that we're there, because they've kind of been going through hell these last few weeks.
A lot of them were sick.
And a lot of them were sick themselves. But just the appreciation from them and all of us kind of coming together and there being such great teamwork, which there often is in nursing, but just, I don't know. It's been a different feeling, and it just feels very rewarding to also help them and them being so appreciative. And it's something I wasn't really mindful of when I came, and it's been great.
My very first day, they huddled up in the ER. They tell you how many patients there in the hospital, how many we have in the ER, if anything's changed, and they give shout out to each other, and it was just amazing. And what are you doing?
In your shot.
Oh, sorry. It's just been amazing. I mean, they told us thank you, but they help each other. I mean, we're all in it together because it's all about the patient, and they are just. I saw people. This one lady, she was a therapist. Sorry, she was doing a housekeeping position because the ER needs to be cleaned, and so you got to clean in between the patients, and so they were short in every area. So I just was like, wow, you have people that normally didn't work in the ER pitching in. One night, the fire department and the police department put together a parade. They had all the staff come outside and they rode by and just told us thank you. And I was like, wow.
That's so nice.
Mhm.
If you guys could each tell me one thing that you would like people in every state of America and also in the world to know during this time, what would that be?
I kind of have two things. I think that there's been a lot of misinformation being given out, and I think what a lot of people are kind of going back and forth with and arguing. Everyone is a big argument is it bad? Is it not that bad? Like, is it that big of a deal? Well, really, you only have a teeny tiny percent chance of getting the disease. But I think that what people need to realize is it's different situations, state by state. While things might not be that bad in Alabama or Georgia right now, there's the potential for that. So I think that while people are arguing about things being different scenarios, yes, it is because you're in a different place and different states are being affected differently right now. But I think what people need to remember is Alabama and Georgia and different areas that are, Texas and other states that are considering opening back up right now. I think that it's a very risky move because I think that those states and a lot of the states that haven't been as affected as Washington, California, mainly New York and New Jersey, they didn't have the opportunity to be aware of the situation and kind of incorporate the social distancing. So they didn't have that chance. And so for these other states to go ahead and open things back up, I just feel like it's very risky. And I understand that the economy is important, and of course it's terrible that we're having these situations that are really impacting especially small family businesses and that sort of thing. But I think at the end of the day, um, those states need to be mindful that while the situation might not be that bad there, they don't want to turn into New York and New Jersey. Human life is the most important, and how can you even compare the two? And everyone says, oh, well, suicide numbers and all these different things could impact you, but nothing comes close to statistically. I mean, as far as the impact on life as this disease will if everyone just goes back out into the world. Um, and something that's also been really hard, something that has been very interesting. I knew it was going to be the ICU is a difficult environment to me sometimes because a lot of people, their family members will be going through what the ICU is, which is a lot of times having a tube in your mouth and in your throat and having someone, put something down and suction it and being half awake and groggy and not know what's going on. And it's really, really not an ideal situation. And I never want to go through it. And I personally never want any of my family to go through it, especially if there's not a good chance for survival. So a lot of time it's a sad situation in the ICU where people don't realize that. And I think that a lot of times when those family members come and visit their families in the ICU, they kind of get a glimpse of how things really are. Um, and eventually, make decisions about making their loved ones comfort care, which, in my opinion, is appropriate a lot of the time if there's not a good outcome. That's likely to care. So comfort care is when a person, makes themselves or the family member decides, hopefully the family member that is in the hospital will already have paperwork and discuss their wishes with their family, but that they would like comfort care or to be a DNR if they're in a predicament where they can't make decisions for themselves. And being a DNR, I think most people understand, but it's if you go into cardiac arrest, they're not going to do compressions or do further life saving measures. Um, but it's especially hard for I think these family members that don't even get to visit the family to see a glimpse of the reality of what their family member is going through. So it feels like it's even harder for them to get to that decision of making their family member comfort care or a DNR. So that's been really, really sad.
So bottom line is have your paperwork in order and have a living will.
Yes, for sure. Because people think, oh, it's never going to happen. Um, it's happening all the time. I had I've been taking care of this one patient for 5 days, and one thing that's been really sweet, each unit is been given an iPad. So this just started like last couple days in our unit. So while they can't come in and visit their family member, we can FaceTime with them or Google Duo or all these different things I'm learning about with their loved one, and kind of, whether it be say their goodbyes or talk to them and give encouraging words, whatever it might be. But today, poor young this young guy, he's like, I'm 33, I'm too, I still need my mom, and he was saying that she was a healthcare worker herself, and was just the strongest woman he knew, and she was always picking up extra shifts. This lady's in her 60s, and it was just so sad that he never saw anything like this coming because she was in such good condition before.
Just quit arguing. Some people just want to argue and make their point and be right. You don't have to be right. And we all are entitled to have a different opinion. I think the whole world is just arguing and bickering, and I think it's just silly. The time we all need to come together, support, and encourage each other.
A lot of people are showing people how to wash their hands, and every video I see is wrong. I happen to work in a hospital for a little while in high school, and so I would love it if you guys could show people how to wash their hands.
You walk in, you get your paper towels from the dispenser and have them ready, hanging.
Ready to go.
So then you turn the water on. So get it a little bit wet, and then you lather. I do this all the way. In between.
Okay.
Do you sing a
Every
song?
crevice. For most people, you can sing happy birthday a couple times.
You can also sing a bunch
You
of
heard
really
what?
random songs. Like I've heard some top 40 songs that you can sing a couple times.
Happy birthday. That's how I wash my hands.
So anyways, 2 to 3 minutes, and then you want to rinse down. Because the main thing is you want the germs to go down, off. You don't want the germs to come back this way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, most importantly, when you're done,
Take the paper towel.
and turn off the. You can dry your hands
first a little bit. Then I would do that. And then
turn it off with paper towel because you just had your dirty hand on that.
That's true. And
Yeah.
other people did too, and they might not wash their hands the same way you do.
did I do a good job?
You did a great job. How long was that process? You said 2 to 3 minutes.
120 to 190 minutes. 190 seconds. 2 to 3 minutes.
You definitely wouldn't catch COVID if you're washing your hands for 190 minutes a day. Sadly, we are running out of time, so I have to say goodbye to you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to drive all the way up to a different state that is in a completely different space than what your home is like, just to help people. It is truly, truly, truly amazing. And also for taking the time to get on with me, even though you're working 48 hours straight. So I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you calling.
Yes, thank you so much. I think you're so great. Like, I'm not surprised at all that you have figured out a way to help, in the most impactful way that you can think of doing, which is to share different people's stories around the world. I think you're just brilliant. I love you. Because number one, you're brilliant for thinking of this. Number two, you care enough to implement it. Like, love you.